Welcome to RPG Book Club LongCast, the podcast where we play an itty-bitty bit of a biggie big video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Houck.
And I'm Maddie Grace Webben.
And today we'll be discussing part 6 of Final Fantasy XIII-2, which is covering episode 5. And before we get to all of that, we have a top 5 of the week, and we are doing good old-fashioned top 5 books.
Books, y'all. You ever read them?
Aren't they something?
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah, I thought of this just because we got to have a top 5, and just before hopping onto this call, I was reading Universal Harvester, the second novel by John Darnell, who you might know as the singer-songwriter, also known as the Mountain Goats. And as I just tweeted, like any trans girl, I think the Mountain Goats are really great.
They're really good.
Not my favorite musician of all time, but great. Like, absolute deserves all the fame he gets. He's awesome. He's a better novelist than he is a songwriter.
Wow.
Damn. He's his first novel, which I read many years ago, Wolf and White Van, is a masterpiece. It hit me like a truck when I first read it. It's very difficult to read, though. All the difficult, heavy emotions that he subtly alludes to in his music, he less subtly alludes to in his novels. Let's say that way. It's like a more high dosage of trauma and pain and ennui. The second book of his, I'm only like 40 pages into it. It's phenomenal. I'm not going to put it in my top 5 books because I just started it, but it made me think, damn, books are good, huh? So that's why we're doing books.
Nice.
It makes me mad when people are good at more than one thing, because I'm only good at one thing.
I'm not even good at one thing.
I can write, but I sure am not a singer-songwriter.
I'm not even good at one thing. I don't know why. It doesn't even matter how hard I try.
Yeah, I unfortunately, the first time I wrote a full-ass song top to bottom, it was, not to toot my own horn, but it was voted one of the top 25 punk rock songs written in Austin, Texas of all
what song
time.
was this?
Player 2. The
that
one
was
about Sebastian.
That was the first song you ever wrote?
That was the first song I wrote top to bottom. I've written riffs, I've written like
you mean like
chorus
not
things.
with the rest of your band helping out?
Yeah, but that was the first one. It was my brainchild. I wrote all the lyrics.
It's a really good song.
It's really good. But you know how like hard that must be to like the first time you do it, it's really good. Because then every other time it's like, well,
yeah.
I don't have another dead song to write a song about. So how the fuck am I ever going to top that? So I am also not a very good singer-songwriter.
I sometimes like to think that this is not based on any science or anything. This is just sort of a spiritual belief that artists have a certain amount of art just and I say this as someone who I don't really consider myself an artist. I'm not a very creative person. We've discussed this. But people who have that special artistic spark, because I do think there's something to it beyond just, people always say like, oh, skill isn't inherent, a talent isn't inherent. It's not an able thing. It all just comes down to practice, nature versus nurture. I think there's a certain artistic spark that some people have and some people just don't fucking have. And I say that as someone who doesn't fucking have it. And no amount of learning and skills is going to make up for that, which is not to say that you can't make good art with skills. You can. People who, for example, Quentin Tarantino. It sounds silly, but he's a person who doesn't really make art with his creative spark. He seems to make art using his analytical brain. That's the kind of art I could make if I ever felt like it. But anyway, I feel like when it comes to that creative spark, I feel like people have a certain amount of art in them, and they got certain things to say. And I feel like once you're done, you're done. And that doesn't mean you can't keep making things that are good. But it's like, yeah, I can see that you're just sort of coasting now. I think Sufjan Stevens has gotten past that point. Sufjan Stevens had a couple of things that he spent the first 15 years of his career writing about. Mm-hmm. And now, obviously I could be wrong, but based on the last 5 years or so of his career, I'm like, nah, I think you're just probably going to make like good B+ albums that are nice to listen to, but don't have that same punch to them for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I mean, you can only have so many feelings about Christmas.
Exactly. And I say that with a lot of artists. It's like, they very clearly reach the apotheosis of whatever it is they're trying to say. And then after that, it's all just like a nice bonus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Radiohead's at that point in their career, which again doesn't. So the point is, your very first song you wrote was a very personal expression of some very important thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if that was your thing and everything else you write is just like some nice songs that we all like to bop our heads to, then well.
Yeah, that's my current musical thing is, like you said, it's very analytical, and I'm using the skills that I've been giving. It is pop punk music made using only bass guitars and the Sega Genesis, and it's all just covers, because I think it would be cool to have a cover of The Con by Tegan and Sarah played on a bass guitar and a Sega Genesis.
And that shit can be awesome. There's nothing bad about that.
Yeah, nothing at all. I just don't have songwriting in me anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially because the kind of music that I make is made out of anger, and I love my wife and I love my kids, and life is pretty darn good. There's not a whole lot of anger hanging out in here anymore. So I'm just gonna steal other people's anger and write those songs instead.
I kind of feel like with Possum Boy, my big brainchild project, I feel like I made that just with skill, and there wasn't like a whole bunch of like major artistic spark behind it. Mm-hmm. I feel like I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna sit down and write something, and I'm gonna write something really fucking good. But I feel like I wasn't expressing some deep thing in my soul that I needed to express.
I feel the same way about it, and that's honestly one reason why I like it a lot. It's very light. I think anyone can enjoy it, partially because your goal is just, I want to make something that's good using my skills.
Mm-hmm. And also I like possums.
Yeah.
Possums are good. What's also good are books, which we haven't even touched on yet. So who wants to go first? Who has the first one?
I've only got 4, so someone else go.
I have 5.
Okay. I have 7 because I said I was going to do 4 and 2 honorable mentions, and then I thought of my actual 5th answer. So I have a lot.
We can just say shit. Who cares? No one's judging us. Look, if some of our listeners want some book recs, so they get one more than you said you were going to give them, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
So my top 5 are, I feel like they say a lot about me, but I don't know what they say. These are not in any order, except the last one is my favorite.
Okay.
Moby Dick. Oh. It's a good one.
It's on my list, obviously.
The 3-Body Problem.
Who is that one by? I've never heard of that.
XIII-2. I'm pronouncing it wrong. Sorry, it's in Chinese. It's a science fiction novel. It's phenomenal. I turned Bernard onto it.
Yes.
The only problem with it is that it's first part of a trilogy, and the trilogy gets better after that.
I haven't read the rest of the trilogy, but
so if you read it and love it, the rest of it will be better.
So it's the Danganronpa problem.
Yeah.
It's really great. It has sort of a Lovecraftian vibe for part of it, but I don't want to imply that it is in any way derivative of anything, because it's brilliant and very original.
It's a science fiction novel that is it's got a major rooting in Chinese history, like 20th century Chinese history. The fun fact about that book, the author said that the reason why the first book has so much, is so grounded in, Chinese history and politics is because he felt like, and I don't know if it's true, I'm not Chinese, but he felt like science fiction books, especially wild-ass hard science fiction books, weren't very popular in China right now. So he decided, I'm going to make something more accessible to people, right? Some sort of a historical fiction drama, because that's what people are into right now. But really, I cared more about the hard sci-fi. So since the first book was a big hit, he was able to do what he really wanted to do, which is that the next 2 books just go off the fucking rails with the crazy sci-fi shit. Which, if you really loved the historical political drama in the first book, you're a little aw. But it's no, he really just wanted to have a hook to get people to read his crazy sci-fi book.
I love that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Another one of my favorite books is The Great Gatsby. You read it in high school, and you were wrong about it in high school.
I didn't fully appreciate it until I read it again in college.
The thing about both of the you read it in high school or college books on your list so far is I just chose not to do those assignments. I taught myself enough about the book by the context clues from the questions on the test to skate by and pass. So maybe I should actually read both of those books.
You should. They're phenomenal works of literature.
The Great Gatsby is super short, so it's definitely... I definitely recommend anyone go ahead and read it, because it's a really easy read. Moby Dick is, of course, a lot longer, and it's not an easy read, but there is a really fantastic audiobook of it.
I was about to ask, that sounds like the prime book to have a really good audiobook, and which is how I probably would listen to it.
So Moby Dick's on my list, too, I want to say. The thing about Moby Dick, if people write all about like the symbolism of it and the themes and the depth, look, it's a theme about how whales are dope and sailing is cool. No, I'm joking. It does have depth to it, but like, what really makes the book amazing is not the deep themes and the symbolism and shit. Like, if you want to read that shit into it, that's great, and there is a lot there. But the prose is just heartbreakingly beautiful. Like, the sentences are just phenomenal artistic works of poetry. And that's why reading it in audio form is honestly extra good, because the reader, hearing it said out loud brings so much out of the rhythm and the sound of the words. And because it has these super long sentences that just like cascade over themselves with alliteration, and they go off on these weird tangents, but like, you don't care. You're having such a good time listening to it. It's like every sentence is like a journey you go on. I have the name of that guy. You can't remember his name, Bernard.
Frank Muller. I just looked it up.
Good.
Read by Frank Muller. Awesome.
Yes.
There are more than one audiobook, and I have briefly sampled them. Frank Muller's is far and away the best one.
Yeah, and I think Frank Muller is a great way to experience it, because if you're just reading it, you'll find a sentence and you'll not be quite sure about it. It's like beautiful and speaks to your soul, but your brain isn't getting it. Well, guess what? Frank Muller's just going to tell you the next sentence. You can't get caught up in that and get slowed down. You can't get caught
going, yep. Also, if you space out for a second and miss something, unlike other audiobooks, guess what? Nothing has happened.
all you missed is some incorrect facts about whales.
Yeah, you might just be in the chapter where that's the thing. So much about the book is like a painting. Like, the book has a plot, yes, but when the book was written, your average Joe, I mean, even today, your average Joe doesn't know anything about whaling, or even the basic facts of like what a whale is, or how a ship is run. Like, what are the different jobs on a ship, right? So there's lengthy chapters of the book. I'd say a good like third of the book is these chapters where it's not narrative. He's just describing like the order, like how dinner on a ship works. How like the captain goes in first, and then the people who are below him in rank go in next, how they sit around the table, the manners that they use, the kind of food they eat. And that's why it's almost like painting. Like, you can look at a painting where, is this expressing anything deep artistically? No, it's just a still life, right? But it's beautiful, and you can admire just how wonderfully rendered it is. And that's how like a good third of this book is. It's just amazingly poetically written chapters that also inform you of how a whaling ship works.
Yeah, I've always...
Well, that's why I love The Great Gatsby, the last book I mentioned.
Yes. I just wanted to say one more thing about Moby Dick. I have been interested to go back and actually read it, because the first sentence is not, hello, my name is Ishmael. It's, call me Ishmael, which already is just way better written than everything else of the time. So I've always wanted to do it, especially after meeting you two who love the shit out of it.
Yeah, it's just a simple sentence, and yet he's like, I'm going to make sure I write this sentence in a way that is characterful and sets a tone for the book. And it's 3 words. With only 3 words, he manages to do a little bit to establish a bit of character and tone. That is a good point, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I've lost count of how many were on your list. What else do you have?
So I said Moby Dick, The Three-Body Problem, and The Great Gatsby. The funny thing is, I remember nothing of what happens in this next book. I just remember that it fucking ruled. The Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah. Cool. Summer really loves that movie, and we watched it together, like one of our first couple of dates. I don't even remember what happened in the movie.
I really want to read everything Dumas wrote, because
that's the same guy who wrote the Three Musketeers, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Famously, he's a black man.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And my favorite book is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
Absolute masterpiece.
Yes, it is so
Tim, you
much
would love
book.
this one.
Yeah, you probably would.
I think the last time we were talking about how cool books were, you mentioned this book and sold me on it, and it's
been his favorite ever since I told him to read it.
Yeah, well, no, it's been my favorite ever since I read it after you told me to read it.
So you said it was called Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness?
Yes. Written by Sam Raimi. It's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
Okay. Yeah, I as y'all are saying things, I currently have an Airtable set up. If you don't know what it is, go to airtable.com. It's like
Microsoft Airtable.
It's like Microsoft Excel, but it lets you do all of the cool stuff without having to know how to code. And so I have a iPhone shortcut that I tap, and it opens up my Airtable form for book recommendations. So when I hear a good book, I can just press a button on my phone, type in a little bit about it real quick, and it adds it to my to-be read pile.
Cool.
Yeah, you would especially love it because you're the kind of person who actually has the patience to, I'll dive into this outrageously long series. That's fine to me. Good thing about John Strange Mr. Norrell, it's insanely long, but it is all in one book. So you read the one book, and it's very long, and then you're done.
Nice.
It's like a 3-book series in one book.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And who was the author?
Susanna Clark, I think is her name.
Yeah.
Nice.
And she took a decade to write this book. It came out. It was a huge sensation. And then for ages, she never wrote another single thing. Everyone assumed maybe it's because the next book she's writing will also take her 10 fucking years. She wrote 1 or 2 short stories here and there. And then just a few years ago, I enough time passed that I forgot to keep checking. Maybe in 2020 or so, she dropped her second book, and it got phenomenal reviews.
I need to read it.
Nice.
Yeah, 16 years after her debut.
Nice. That was your fifth? That was your favorite?
Yeah, that's my favorite book.
All right. So mine are also...
I really want a tactics RPG based on it.
For real.
For the first third of the book, you'll be like, why the fuck does he want a tactics RPG? And then all the tactics RPG will start happening, and you'll be like, oh.
That's what you'll be like.
Nice. I will probably check that one out.
Do like a Fire Emblem Three Houses style, where you get lots of hearts, you go around and talk to people.
Yes.
Nice. So all of mine are series because I am a psychopath. But and they are all, I say they're all very different. They all are very, very the same, but they're all different in the same in the very narrow genre that they all exist in. So my favorite series is Odd Thomas. It is fantastic. The first and third and last 2 books are the top. The other ones, Odd Thomas shows up and shenanigans happen. But 1 and 3 specifically stick out where they're fan-fucking-tastic. Maddie, unfortunately, the one that I think you should read is number 3. You can choose to read 1 and 2 if you want to, or just dive in to number 3, because number 3 is the one that's... so Odd Thomas himself is a diehard Catholic, and that comes up in book 3, and is all about that sort of stuff, which I think you would really enjoy. Because because if you haven't ever heard of Odd Thomas or seen the movie or anything, he's a guy who can see ghosts, and until things started happening, he just kind of dealt with it. And then every now and then he would help the ghosts find peace by like giving their testimony to the cops and finding their murderer, those sorts of things. But then weird shit starts happening, and in the face of all of this, the moral of the story at the end of the third one is like, yeah, God and stuff is absolutely 100% like real and doing his own thing, and all of this crazy ghost shit that's happening to me is its own thing, and I'm not going to try and think I know better and shit like that. I'm paraphrasing a lot, but it's good. I didn't want to give away the spoiler at the end of the book, but it's great. I really like it. Unfortunately, so there's 7 books, 3 being the high point, 4 and 5 and 5.5, the little novella, are the low point. They're garbage and I do not like them at all, but it gets really good at the end again. So the next one on my list is The Belgariad by David and Leah Eddings. It will only be credited David Eddings for the main 10 books, and it's the last 2 that are him and his wife. But he said when he released the last 2 that him and his wife have been writing partners for forever, but Macmillan or whoever the fuck was doing it back in the day said a lady writer on a fantasy book wouldn't sell, so they took his wife's name off of them. So I always refer to it as both of them because they both wrote it. But it's really good. He talks about several times how to write a fantasy book, you just have to have a chosen one, and you have to have a magic thing, and the chosen one has to go on the quest to get the magic thing, and then that needs to be as hard for the chosen one as possible, and all of the hard stuff that you give to him makes the whole fantasy book. And he says this like in the author's note at the beginning of the first book to let you know that like we're just here for vibes. We're just here for a good time. Like the world building is good. All of the fantasy stuff is good, but the chosen one is going after the MacGuffin, and that's just what you're in for. But the writing is fantastic. The characters are amazing. It's a joy to read. It's 10 books long, and it doesn't even feel like it. Like you just plow straight through them because they're such a delightful read. My next one is also a 10-book series. Only 4 of them are out. It is not a delightful read. It is a very depressingly read. It is the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. It's easily the best fantasy series I've ever read, and all of these on my list are fantasy, so maybe this counts as my number one. But the magical system is based on emotional damage. It's not actually, it has all this other stuff, but it's basically just a lot of broken people, and their brokenness makes them strong, and it is not afraid to spend like 300 pages talking about the specific brand of depression that Kaladin has, and it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. There's the unfortunate part about it is it's so hog wild that I can't even like give you spark notes and say like, oh, this is a part that's awesome. Like, for instance, if anyone has read the Stormlight Archive, that moment when Kaladin pulls his shard blade and instead of being a sword, it's a spear, broke me. And to understand why, you have about 2,000 pages of book to go read.
You're just so sad that it wasn't a sword.
And no, I was really, really happy for him that it wasn't.
Oh, you were just so happy that it wasn't a sword.
Yeah,
because you hate swords.
I hate swords.
That's it.
That's it. That's the only thing. But it's so good. So like the like technically correct but not correct at all elevator pitch is it's Legend of Dragoon, but everyone is depressed, and it takes place on a world that has a hurricane every 14 days. And that just wipes across the entire world, start to finish.
That's a lot of hurricanes.
And so because there's all those hurricanes, like grass can move because it sucks itself down into the ground to make itself survive the hurricane. And like you can't just have cows because they're not strong enough to survive a hurricane every 14 days. So it's all like big bugs and stuff like that. And it's like that one idea of what if there was a hurricane every 14 days spreads out into all of the different world building and all of the stuff that it needs, and it gently guides you there. It's fantastic. I could talk about Stormlight Archive forever. I highly recommend it for people who like to read 10 books that clock in at over 1,000 pages each. For people who don't like to read that long of stories, you should read the Septimus Heap series, starting with the first book is called Magic. It's by Angie Sage. It's the book we all should have been obsessed with instead of Harry Potter. It has that tone where everything is happy. Evil is very easy to figure out. They're evil because they're evil, and you got to go stop the evil stuff. And you have the little boy Septimus Heap that's doing all of the stuff. But one of the reasons that I love it, and this trickles down to being the whole series, but in the first book, you don't meet Septimus Heap until the last page of the book, basically. So it's like all focused on the side characters, and figuring out who Septimus is like the main like mystery of the first book. But him being the title character and the extraordinary wizard and all this other garbage is important to the thing, but they don't just it's not what happens in the prologue to start off the story. It's like what you earn throughout the story, and it's really good. If you liked Harry Potter, you will love Angie Sage. And Angie Sage has trans children and says trans rights, so
that's good.
Fuck yeah, Angie Sage. And then my last one is technically just one book because it is a series, but I don't like the second one nearly as much as I like the first one, and there's only 2 books. But The True Meaning of Smek Day by Adam Rex. It is the book that the movie Home with Rihanna and Jim Parsons and J-Lo, that movie. Well,
Rihanna and Jim Parsons is quite a duo.
They are duo, that's for sure.
They are a fantastic duo. The movie holds up. The movie is really, really good. But the book I picked up on a whim because my roommate in my dorm room in college, and being in it was in Pinland and Baylor, so we were like across from each other.
Life.
There was no privacy. He had really bad insomnia, could not sleep for like weeks. I walk into the dorm room one day and he's asleep in like the middle of the day. So I close the door as softly as I can, and I leave for like 6 hours, like let him get his sleep. So I go to the bookstore and I'm just looking around for something to do, and it was on clearance for like $3. So I picked it up and I read it in one sitting that day. It's just really good. It is like a young adult Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's really, really fucking good. And then my 2 honorable mentions. One of them is an honorable mention because it's a manga series, but it's Digimon Next. It's only on here because Bernard joked, "Are there Digimon books?" But so most of the Digimon books are tie-ins to a game or tie-ins to a show or something like that, and they're not really that good. But around the time of Digimon Season 5, they made a Digimon manga that was like, if you think of Digimon as like Pokemon generations, like they both take place in like Gen 5, but it's not an adaptation of the same story. So it's like, the main characters still are like, they have an Agumon and they still do this sort of thing. These are the current rules we're working with, but it instead tells its own story. And it was fantastic, start to finish, like really freaking good. Highly recommend it. It's not terribly long either, which is refreshing in the shonen space. And then my other honorable mention is my Great White Buffalo book. I think I've mentioned it before. But my brother's best friend, way back when he was living with us, when I was in high school. He had this book that had some dude with a green vest and some wavy black hair and a really cool sword on it. He was like, dude, this is awesome. You have to read it. And I was like, absolutely. But then he moved out before he was done with it. So I never got to read it, but I always wanted to. The things he told me about it sounded super awesome. So about 6 months ago, I happened to find that book. Turns out that was book like 6 of a 11 book series. Don't know why he was trying to get me to start on book 6, but whatever. I'm only like halfway through with the first book, and I love it because it's not very good. Like the sentences all like. I know you two have probably never read a light novel in your life, but it reads kind of like a light novel where it's like the dialogue is good and it's snappy, and then the stage directions, as it were, kind of just get the job done, and you move on to the next thing. And it's it is not like Moby Dick, where if there were an audiobook of it and you spaced out for a couple seconds, you didn't miss anything. You probably missed everything because there is no flowery language wasted in the middle of it. But that makes these huge fantasy books. It's not like, oh, I have 1,000 pages and 400 pages of that is describing people's food. It's like I have 1,000 meaty ass pages of book to read, and the like idea behind it, at least as far as I can tell now, is the prologue is like, oh, there's a master of light and a master of shadows, but history doesn't know, like, is the master of light the good guy or the master of shadow the good guy? Who knows? The only reason you'd ever ask that question is if the master of shadow is the good guy. And she's spending a lot of pages to make us think that he's not, and I guarantee you that he's the guy on the cover. And that's going to be the big revelation at the end of the book, and I'm excited for that. But yeah, those are my 7 books that I really, really, really like.
Nice. All right, I got 10. Don't worry, it's gonna be really fast. The reason I read a lot of nonfiction, and I was like, I can't think of very many fiction, so I'll just do like a mixture of both. And then as y'all talked, I ended up managing to get 5 of each, so I might as well go. Don't worry, I'm not going to take that long. The Great Gatsby, it's incredible. It's a masterpiece. I don't connect as much with it as I used to, mostly because I've gotten over my divorce. But it's a great book, and there's a lot of real depth to it.
Also, fun fact. The Baz Luhrmann film is great, actually.
It's a great movie. It's the only film of his I even like. Moby Dick's awesome for reasons previously described. And these are all a little flip. I like a lot of books. My favorite genre, I always say, is science fiction. I try to read mostly science fiction, but there's only one science fiction book on here because, I don't know, a couple non-science fiction books have been crowding it out for years. Third is Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino. It is a novel. It is a novel that is really just sort of a series of short 1, 2, 3 page long descriptions of fantastical cities with some framing devices between them. But the cities, it's not just like, oh, here's some architecture. It's like the descriptions of the cities deal with various like philosophical concepts. I don't know. It sounds really lame, but it seriously rules. It's a phenomenon. It's a fantastic book. Everything Italo Calvino rules. Next is Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov. Pale Fire finally surpassed Lolita as my preferred Nabokov. It's a tough one. They're both phenomenal. I don't have much to say about Pale Fire. It's just great. The poem part of it, Pale Fire is a silly little experimental book where the main text of the book is a 999 line long poem, which that's not very long, right? It's poetry. So it takes a little bit to read. But then it's the framing devices that the poem was found by this guy after the death of the person who wrote it, and he managed to acquire the rights to it, and then it's like got all these end notes, which are the majority of the book. And it's like this weird story about a crazy guy who's obsessed with his favorite poet and how he becomes like a weird stalker. It's really great. But the poem at the core of it, it's just a great, powerful work, even without the main rest of the actual book. And that's what makes it really neat, I think.
I mean, if anyone was going to take the problem of you have a great piece of art at the center of your piece of art, and you have to somehow make that piece of art great enough to fit in that place, I feel like Nabokov would be the one to just knock it out of the park like
exactly.
It was nothing.
It's quite interesting. Anyway, and then my fifth one is a book I haven't finished yet, so I feel trepidatious, but it's Red Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson. I read enough of it to know it's a masterpiece, and then I fell off because I got busy, and it's such a complex book that it's one of those things where if I was going to read it, if I was going to finish it, I would need to start over. And it's like, god damn it. It's ostensibly a book about colonizing Mars and terraforming it. It's really a book about human beings working. It's a book about politics. It's a book about human beings working together and making very, very difficult decisions. And you could say, but Maddie Grace, you're being a little silly here. That's every book. No, like, it's very literally about that in, like, a political sense. Like, it's about a project of creating the world and how different people with different visions of the world have to navigate those disagreements, and how working in organization with other people on a shared project that's a very big, hundreds of years long, complex project. It's really a phenomenal book. It's the first of a trilogy. All right, five nonfictions. I don't know. I read a lot of great nonfiction. I'm going to give you 5. All right, first, The Romance of American kind of sums it all up. It's great. Next is The Teamster Rebellion, which is a book I just finished a few days ago. And yes, this is not recency bias. It really is one of the best books I've ever read in my life. It's a book about the 1934 Minneapolis Teamster strike, and it's an exciting narrative. It's an exciting narrative about a whole city rising up against their shitty employers and winning a better life. It's so fucking good. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll be shocked by some of the twists. And finally, 2 more actually of capitalism. There's other things he's written that are also awesome, but this is kind of a best of, get it all in one go. This 3-volume pamphlet series. So those are my political readings. Yeah, so there you go. And 5 books that I just kind of pulled out of my ass a little bit.
Nice.
Speaking of pulling stuff out of your ass, let's talk about the plot of Final Fantasy XIII-2.
Okay. Bernard, I love you. I want to listen to you. However, I need to get more coffee, so go ahead and just start talking. I obviously played the game, so I'll just be back in a second.
Long ago, when I was just a boy, so how long then? Last of my kind ain't there one.
So, Bernard, what happens in Final Fantasy XIII-2?
So when we last left our heroes, they were about to step through a gate and see Caius on the other side, they were pretty sure. So Hope and Alyssa show up to say goodbye to Sarah and Noel. They talk for a long time about not much. They wonder if raising a new cocoon will free Fang and Vanille, and it's still not clear what they plan to do with the old cocoon. Hope says when they're done here, they plan to journey forward 100 years to see Cocoon be raised into the sky. They say goodbye, and Noel and Sarah step through the gate. Hope turns away, but Alyssa stares at Mog. Ominous music plays. It's weird. So, is Alyssa bad? Is this a duplicate of Alyssa somehow? Who can say?
Because this game sure doesn't.
Who can say? Probably not Daisuke Watanabe.
Wait, well, I just popped in. What part are you making that joke about?
Alyssa maybe being evil. That weird part where she's like looking at Mog and ominous music plays.
I didn't pick up on that at all. Maybe that's just because she's so cute. I can never imagine that.
She is very cute, even when she's staring at Mog ominously.
Oh, I thought the implication there was something ominous about Mog.
Oh, maybe there is something ominous about Mog.
Yeah, that's
But
what I
just
think it is.
The way the music came in, it felt more to me like the music was talking about Alyssa. But
Oh
who
man,
can
she's
say?
behind it all along.
Who can say? So, Noel and Sarah pop out into the Astoria Crux, but it's breaking apart. Sarah and Mog get separated from Noel. Sarah falls into some sort of void. A female voice, I think it's Sarah's, I'm actually not sure, says, "I'm sorry, but in the future you wish to build, I no longer exist." I don't think it's Yule, because Yule's voice is weird. So I don't know.
Burbic,
I think it's Sarah.
Ago, but I do think it was Sarah, and I think I also was confused by it when that happened.
Okay. I think it was Sarah, but usually Sarah's talking like in sort of a higher pitch, but she was like saying it really serious business. It's sort of like how when Titus is narrating, he has good voice acting.
That's right. He turns into Bob Saget.
Yes. So we see Caius totally own Noel in the void beyond. He fucking kills him. Sarah
We're
pops
talking
out,
like stabs in the heart, dead, dead.
yeah, with a big sword.
Undoubtedly, this man is now dead.
Yes, he's definitely not going to turn out to not be dead.
Oh, and in case you're curious, that previous scene where they're flying through the tunnel and then Noel gets separated and they're all alone, and then you save, and for the first time in like the entire game, you're the only person on the menu screen. That was where we actually stopped last week. So when I was like, "Oh, there's a crazy cliffhanger," that's what was happening. So for those of us that actually played this part, man, we've been on tenterhooks ever since.
Indeed,
And then it starts with Noel getting died.
Yeah. So Sarah pops out elsewhere / maybe win in the void beyond. Mog is in weapon form, but disappears when Sarah picks it up. As Sarah walks through the void beyond, we see a ghostly form of Mog floating behind her. It's weird.
I want to say, at some point, you start being able to use, what's it called, like Mog
Moogle
power?
Hunt?
Moogle Hunt? I think Google Hunt. A bit later, just in case this is in your notes, this confused me at the time. A bit later, Sarah makes some mention, like, Mog was gone the whole time. So I think that whenever we make Moogle Hunt happen, that's just happening like non-diegetically or something, like Sarah's not making him do it, because I do think that Sarah does not know that Mog is here the entire time.
Yeah.
She is using an invisible weapon, and I don't really know what's up with that. Like, clearly it's Mog, but a shadow of Mog, so I don't know what she thinks that is.
Yeah, but it is true, though, that later when he comes back, she'll be like, "Oh, you finally came back." So, who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, Sarah sees Yule, because despite going to all these timelines, there's like 5 characters in this game.
Yeah.
Yule says, from Sarah's perspective, Yule, is from the distant past. This, I've just got to say, there are lots of conversations where people are talking about different people, but they all have the same pronoun, and it was hard to write it in a way that's not confusing.
Yes.
Yule says she's not really here and only watches events from a distant time. This is a shadow of Valhalla. In the depths of the unseen realm, she sees Sarah held prisoner. Yule says if Sarah does not escape, the dream will go on forever. Yule disappears and reappears elsewhere. Sarah talks to this new Yule, who's from Sarah's present. Yule says they're the same, blessed by Etro, her chosen servants. The powers to step outside the timeline and view the future come from Etro. So here you can ask several things. I choose to ask what kind of goddess Etro is. Yule says she's a deity of the unseen realm. After gifting us with spirit and empowering us with will, she was engulfed in chaos and now drifts towards oblivion. Yule disappears. Sarah finds another Yule. This one says she's from a future Sarah has never known. Yule says her own presence here will fade soon. She disappears. Sarah finds another Yule, who says, once upon a time, there were 6 and 1 l'Cie. For those of you at home, that's 7 l'Cie. And their story is a miracle. The destinies of the six were bound through the completion of a focus that belonged to the one. Sarah actually gets what she's talking about. I would kind of expect Sarah to be the sort of character who doesn't get it.
Yeah.
But she got it.
It's obviously obvious to us.
Real quick before we continue, I just pulled up the Let's Play to listen to the In the Future I No Longer Exist. That's Alyssa. Alyssa says that. So that's why she's looking at Mog all weird like, because if we change the future and then therefore change the past, she won't be there. She's only in this bastard timeline that we're currently in where lightning doesn't exist. That's
why wouldn't she be? That's
I don't know. I'm hoping we get some explanation there.
Interesting.
Also, I hate that. Alyssa rules. Although she's secretly the main character the entire time and that she has to die, I'll accept it, even though I do love her.
Yeah.
Yet another Yule tells Sarah that the goddess Etro saw the Lassie fulfilled their tasks. She saw their courage and took pity on them. She blessed the six and the one, and also a child. For those of you at home, that's 8 Lassie. And so she released them from the prison of crystal. In doing so, she warped time itself. Etro was fading away and she could not restore it. But perhaps you had the power to repair the distortion. And perhaps you did. Sarah's like, what? This Yule says she can no longer see the future and disappears. Sarah finds one more Yule. This one says she is the one who lives in all the ages, the one who dies in all the ages. She is the one who suffers countless partings again and again. Yule says Sarah summoned her here, and in this place Sarah can see all her heart's desires come true. A giant crystal with a throne on it floats in front of them. We might recognize this from the beginning of the game as the throne Lightning was kneeling in front of, if I recall correctly. Yule says, this is the place where all time flows. The dreams of humanity are here washed ashore. Why do you want to change time? Why do you try to stand in his way? Why do you continue on this journey? As you change the timeline, you come closer to death. But now, your journey is over. And the last part, it suddenly starts to be Caius talking, and Yule disappears, and Caius appears in her place. Sarah says, I don't understand. Caius says, you don't need to. And at this point, I feel like I'm having that exact conversation with Daisuke Watanabe. Caius attacks, and surprisingly, you can win this battle. It's not a forced loss. But he just restores himself at the end.
I had a feeling, yeah, because I did lose this battle, but for most of the battle, I was thinking, I'm going to win this battle. I was doing, pretty good. And then he managed to get me.
I actually did win this battle because I'm a pro gamer.
I won both of them, but they were really hard. And I was like, did I just not do enough side questing last week? Because last week I was one hit killing everything and they were super easy. Did this game suddenly get hard? But no, I just beat the guy I wasn't supposed to. And that's what that's why.
This game definitely made the right call here, where you can win or lose, because if any RPG's battle system is not designed to work with one fucking person, it's this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here you do at least have two people. Sarah gets all your Pokemon.
In
a second, Noel does the same fight, and he does not have his
You're
Pokemon.
right, I got mixed up. I was thinking of the Noel fight, where it's just Noel.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, if your battle system really only works when you have a full party, then if you don't have a full party, just make it a fake plot battle.
Yeah.
In Final Fantasy 13-1, do you ever fight with just one person?
Yes.
I don't think you do.
Snow versus Shiva, and it's fucking hard and impossible.
Yeah.
Also, at the very beginning of the game, but that doesn't count. I think that's it, though. I think other than that, it's always 2.
Yeah. Yeah. But at this point, we've already done all the cool, interesting messing around with playing with 2 people in Final Fantasy 13-1. We've done that. We don't really want to continue playing with 2 people. So Caius just restores himself at the end of the battle. Caius taunts Sarah and appears on the throne. He says Noel gave up far more quickly. Caius uses fancy words to say he fucking killed Noel. And he says, He's in a place where he can be happy now. He's at a farm. That's the joke you use in this situation.
Yep.
Sarah shouts that she doesn't believe him and shoots an arrow from her ghostly Mog bow. Caius freezes time and says, "Child of miracles, traveler of time, guided by Etro, listen to me. Each time you fulfill a wish of your heart, someone else's dream is shattered. You conjure miracles, but when you do, the seeds of tragedy are sown in others' lives. Are you prepared to bear that burden, that responsibility?" I want to be clear, I'm not actually trying to impersonate him because he is inimitable, that voice actor.
You're impersonating his vibe.
Yes, his vibe is ridiculous. Sarah asks Caius why he fights them. He says to save Yule. When Etro saved Sarah and the others, it was a sentence of death for Yule. In that moment, immutable history was transformed. Time was twisted. With each distortion of the future, the life of the seeress was cut short. When time is in flux, the future changes and Yule is consumed. So I will dam the river of time and tear down the foundations of history. I had an autocorrect mishap there. Tear down the foundations of history. Only then will Yule's suffering come to an end. He's going to destroy all of history to save Yule. He says he will slay the goddess and return everything to Valhalla. In a place without time or future, Yule will be free for eternity. Caius fucking kills Sarah. Stabs her through the torso with his big-ass sword.
Yeah, like, to the same degree as last time. Like, dead.
Yes. In a weird, dreamy version of New Bodom, the B-team finds Sarah in her old clothes, sleeping outside of town. They wake her up. She's confused. Everyone acts like the whole game hasn't happened. Sarah quickly catches on that this is weird and messed up. Again, I sort of feel like Sarah would... I just sort of would expect her to be like, what's going on? Was that all a dream? It must have been. But no, she's like, this is weird and fucked up, and I don't like it.
Yeah, she's very on top of things, which, granted, she has been most of this game. Like, yeah. From the very beginning, she's like, I'm wearing different clothes and I had a dream about lightning. Something must have happened to lightning, and now there's a time traveler. Let's go on an adventure. She's very...
Just something about the genre and the character. I don't expect her to be as on top of things as she is. But she is, and I like it. Sarah enters her house and finds Snow there in his old garb. She asks why he's here when he left to look for Lightning. He's like, Lightning's been living with us here since we got married. Sarah freaks out and runs away. Outside, all the NPCs disappear and serious business music plays. Sarah sees Lightning on the pier. Sarah asks why Lightning's here. She says, because you want me to be. You changed history and you're back where you belong. This is it. Your adventure is over. Sarah, come with me. Your family's waiting. Sarah is taken in for a moment, but she knows it's not real, so she's tempted. If she stayed here, she'd be with her loved ones again. We are given a choice. Did y'all accept?
So this is really funny here because I, wanting to see both options, but not wanting to see not just be stuck in the bad ending, I immediately quit the game and was like, it doesn't actually. It's not actually gonna take me that long to just like mash through cutscenes to get to this point again. But I forgot that this game got autosaved. So it turns out that the game had autosaved immediately before I started that one cutscene, the one that we're now with Lightning. Which good job, game. So I duplicated my save. And then chose to go with her. You get a beautiful ending. It is actually a fake ending. Are you going to describe it, Bernard?
Yes.
Okay, good. But I'll mention then the structural thing that's neat is, you make the bad ending, all that stuff, and then the game just kicks you back out to like the
Historia Crux.
Yeah, because, duh. Why did I think the game was going to lock me into a certain decision when this game's whole thing is that you can literally not just hop through time, but reset the events of a specific time? That's a thing you can do. You can reset any chapter of the game and just play it again.
Yeah, your first playthrough of the game is New Game Plus.
Yeah, so just like, and also you even get an artifact from doing this. Sorry, not artifact, a
fragment.
A fragment, which the point of the game is to collect all 180 fragments. So it's actually part of 100% of the game. Just like they managed to put New Game Plus in the normal game, they also managed to loop making a bad ending into the game's flow itself.
That's really
honestly cool. Very, very, very clever. And as soon as it happened, I was like, oh, duh. Why did I think I would need to duplicate my save? This is obviously what they were going to do. Really cool. It's like, maybe not exactly canon, but, well, it's both canon and not canon. It's like, no, this is part of the actual main experience of the game, is having this bad ending and getting a fragment for it.
Yeah, it's called a paradox ending, and it's really cool. And this was
the first one. Yep.
And Yoko Taro had already done this, but this was before Yoko Taro was cool.
Yeah. And this is the first paradox ending we get, but the fact that they made up a phrase, paradox ending, just that seeing that on screen immediately subtly implies, oh, there's more of these, I bet.
Yeah.
Nice.
Although I looked it up, I'm pretty sure the rest of them can't be acquired until actually the post game. So don't go looking around for them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not choose it, but it was not by choice that I didn't choose it. So my 8-bit Do Pro 2 is awesome, except now it's like having connection issues, and I don't know what's up. Like the other day, we're playing Mario Kart, and that it just stopped working. And then I can't get it to stay connected to my computer very well, and I'm not sure what's up. And it's really frustrating. So that disconnected on me. So trying to get that back connected ended up accidentally causing the bug from the first playthrough where the audio turned off. And so I didn't have a controller. I only had the keyboard. I haven't been playing with the keyboard the whole time. I don't know what any of the buttons are, and the button prompts are still on gamepad button prompts. And I'm like, I'm just going to press buttons until I get one of the things through this, so that I can save and quit, so that I can get back in here and do it. And so I mashed buttons on the keyboard and ended up hitting. No, I can't do that. But nice. I did not choose to do it. I was freaking out and just smashing buttons and ended up with that one.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
One thing that I gotta say that's weird here. In a little bit, you're gonna find out that this is like it's like a dream world. Bernard called it a Homestuck dream bubble. It's weird to me, because to me it seems very obvious, if we wanted to be more like in this game's established mechanics and themes that they've already established, why not just say this is an alternate timeline?
Yeah.
Because that would actually make the choice more difficult. Because then it's like, no, this is real. It's 100% real. It's just that you're leaving the timeline, everything's fucked, going into a different timeline where everything's great, and you have everything you want. I feel like if someone
you didn't fix the timeline, you're just in a different one where you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah. But that would be a difficult decision, I think, and because what does fixing the timeline mean anyway? Like, if every time you split something, they haven't addressed this in this game. If like every time you change something, it makes another timeline, or whatever, because then you can't look at the timeline. You can only ever achieve a correct one, right? But to me, this trope's very common, right? Where like, oh, the villain's testing me, and I got to make the right decision. I feel like it's always so obvious that it's a test sent by the villain, where it's like, why would you pick yes? She knows that there's something going on here. She knows it's some kind of illusory experience, So I don't think, and they've developed Sarah's character well enough where I'm like, she would never make that decision. Whereas if it was like, no, this is an alternate timeline, and you can just live in this timeline, and thing will be great. It's not just you being selfish. Then it'd be a more interesting decision, but that's not what's happening here. So I think canonically, I don't see a world where her choosing to stay actually makes any sense with her character, frankly.
Yeah.
Yes, I think she's too strong and cool to stay.
And later she does give, and I'm sure you took your notes on this, later she does give a very specific reason why she chose what she chose, and I love it.
Similar to our discussion way back in the day of instead of trying to get all 7 of the MacGuffins to stop the bad guy from doing the bad thing, just get one and then go be a hermit and never let them find you. If I were a bad guy trapping someone in a false reality from which I didn't want them to wake up so I could continue doing my bad guy thing, I don't think I would send a character to ask them if they want to stay or not. Like, it's always so obvious that they're trapped in a thing. Like, imagine if she just woke up and they were just like eating dinner and they were just hanging out and she just had to overcome that and be like, no, this can't be real all by herself and not just.
But she did literally just wake up and everything's normal and figured out that it wasn't real all by herself. And she's only able to get out because of outside help.
True,
but not because she was tricked, because she was just stuck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a slight difference there.
Anyway. At this point, we've talked about it so much, it feels weird to actually go into what happens in the Paradox ending.
Go for it. I did not know there was a bad ending.
Yeah, tell us about it. It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
Sarah says in a voiceover that she lives a wonderfully happy life here with lightning, Saz. Oh, Saz comes in later. Lightning, Snow, and the B team. Saz and Dodge even come to visit. And Hope said they might be able to save Fang and Vanille from the pillar. Her happiness washes all the other emotions away. There's only one thing that keeps her life from being perfect. She can't remember a certain person. She's certain he was a close friend, but she can't remember anything about him. There's a mirror in her room. She never uses it. It scares her. On the other side of that mirror, there's a whole other world, and if she peeks inside, she'll be lost. Or so it seems to her. All she wants is for these wonderful, magical days to continue. She's home, and she never wants to leave. The end.
Cool.
Yeah, and there's the visuals during this are just so very heartrending. It is kind of cool. It's like her motivation at the beginning of this game was just, I want lightning back. That was it. She didn't have any great motivation. But now it's like, okay, but how much do you care about that versus the fact that you now realize that there's a much greater narrative here. You need to save the world, you know? But it's like, oh, wait, I forgot. I did actually just care about saving lightning all along, didn't I? Fuck.
It's really cool.
Yeah, I really like the ending. It's really well done. And then we get kicked back to the Astoria Crux, and we're like, oh, okay. I have to actually play the rest of the game. So we go back and we tell Lightning no. Sarah thinks of Noel, Snow, Hope, Fang, Vanille. She decides she can't abandon them to live in this world of dreams. Lightning is engulfed in darkness. A voice calls out to Sarah. It guides her to where the gate should be, but nothing's there. Except Vanille. And while the voice is guiding you, I wonder if they did this on purpose. It starts out as just like one-word things and slowly builds up. And I feel like they chose the words or directed the voice actor in such a way that it takes a bit for you to realize it's Vanille, or at least it did for me. It took a few lines before I was like, wait, that's Vanille.
The voice actress also does a much better job. When I saw it was Vanille, I was like, oh my God, Summer, look, listen to this. This is the worst voice acting ever. It's like someone's doing a high-pitched anime girl voice, but through an Australian accent, and it's the weirdest thing. Watch this. And I clicked on to talk to her, and it was just normal. I'm like, never mind.
Her voice, her accent was so different that I was like, is this a different voice actors? Could they not get the same person? But no, but also she doesn't talk a ton. It's a very short scene, so it's hard to really glom onto it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But this is so powerful because, like, I've been chasing after lightning the whole time, but really the bigger thing is the loss of Vanille and Fang. So to see her, also I want to go ahead and pop in and say that the filmmaking here makes it very clear that this is not some weird illusion. This is actual Vanille. Like, obviously it could be, but like, if you're just listening to us say this, but like, yeah, she's in a dream. Yeah, she just had an illusory trick of lightning, but the cinematography, the lighting, the editing, the music, just, it is obvious to both us and to Sarah that the actual real Vanille is standing in front of us, which it's a very powerful moment. I love this scene.
The subtle difference in filmmaking of Lightning's reveal a second ago, Fang and Vanille's reveal right here, and then the next person who we thought was gone, they get revealed in a little bit. Like, you can tell the ones that are real and the ones that aren't, and it's really good. Although
I will say the lightning stuff too, like the filmmaking also really, really does get across very much how emotional of a moment it is for Sarah to just see lightning and snow just hanging out like it's no big deal. Like, even though she doesn't even know it's fake, it's like, it's very painful for her heart, and you can see that here too, like how huge of a moment it is for all the characters involved. It's they really sell it, and you can really feel, it's this whole sequence is very powerful.
Also, one thing that sort of confused me, but I want to point out why it actually makes sense. I was like, Sarah acts like she knows these people, but she like met them for like 5 seconds while she was dying. But she did sort of watch the entire first game through her tears. So she has at least a parasocial relationship with these people.
Which is even more cool because, like, again, her direct emotional motivation is Lightning, her sister. But in the back of her mind, like, the greater loss of this whole game is these people who, to her, she doesn't even know them. She just knows of them. Yeah. She knows of them. So their absence is it's even more of an absence, because it's like it's like a negation of a negation, right? It's the absence of people who she would have met for the first time if they hadn't turned into crystals.
Before the people, us in the comments, Sarah and Vanille were good friends in Final Fantasy 13-1.
Oh, that's right. Sarah and Vanille met, and
they had like two scenes.
They mention it here. She was like, "Oh, Fong, it's nice to finally meet you for real. Yeah. I know Vanille, but it's great to finally meet you."
I forgot about Vanille and Sarah's romantic beach date.
Yeah, but they still only had like the one scene where Sarah had a heart to heart, and then Vanille gave Sarah Sarah gave Vanille some life advice.
Yeah, they famously had at the max 13 days because Vanille and Fong were only awake for 13 days before the game started, and Sarah was
they had a bro moment.
Yeah.
But like, I don't believe Sarah really got to Sarah didn't get to meet Fang.
Yeah.
But she did get to meet Hope and Saz and Daj at the end of the last game, and presumably kept in touch with them. But anyway, so Vanille explains they're both dreaming, and this is some sort of Homestuck situation. Fang also... Yes. Vanille's like, "Sarah, have you read Homestuck?" And Sarah's like, "No, the fan base is, and
no. Vanille is like, "Sarah, we're caught inside of some kind of Homestuck situation."
And Vanille's like, "But no, seriously, it's actually good." And then Fang shows up and says, "Problem Sleuth is better." Fang also appears and says they've come to pull her out of this fantasy. If they don't help, she'll never wake up. Fang creates a space-time distortion. She says if Sarah hadn't made the choice to leave, they couldn't have shown her the way out. They say she needs to save Noel now. They disappear. As Sarah steps into the portal, her clothes turn into her weird magic hip window outfit. Sarah travels to a dying world, 700 AF. It's a dark, desolate, freaky place. Sarah finds Noel standing in...
The green and blue channels on your TV suddenly stop working.
Yes. You have black and white and red.
The graphics here are beautifully evocative. Like, everything is just, like literal just black. Like, there are certain scenes where all you see is just, like, the black outline of, like, the landscape with no detail, and then the fucking blood red apocalyptic background, and maybe like a metallic rusted shed or a slowly turning windmill in front of it. I found this whole sequence very striking. There's also another interesting visual aspect to it that I'm wondering if Bernard put in his notes, so please continue.
If I don't, be sure to remember to mention it.
Yeah, I will, because it's my favorite thing the entire week.
Sarah finds Noel standing in front of a monster he just finished hunting. He runs straight through her, clearly not seeing her or acknowledging her at all. She follows and sees him talking to Caius. Caius tells Noel he's ready to become the true guardian. Noel asks why there has to be one true guardian. Why does he have to replace Caius? Caius says because that is the way. They must have a duel. If Noel wins, the sacred pact passes to him. Just as Caius once defeated his predecessor. If Noel wishes to succeed Caius, he must kill him. Noel's like, nah, I don't want to do that. Caius disappears. Noel voiceovers about how Caius left before he had a chance to defeat him, though he never wanted to kill Caius. He wanted to stand by his side to protect Yule. Noel runs into a camp and meets Yule. He tells her he bagged a big monster for her birthday dinner. And I think it's at this point, like as you're running through there are tons of NPCs, but they're like in like this red outline. And if you go up to them and use Moogle Hunt,
they die.
Yeah.
It's
really
fucking cool.
So here's the funny thing. Here's the funny thing. I ran around for ages and explored the entire map, not knowing what to do here. And then I noticed, oh wait, what if I did Moogle Hunt on an NPC? But the very first one I did it to was Noel, and then that triggered the next cutscene.
Yeah, the NPCs.
So I didn't get to see that.
They like the actual model shows up and they fall over dead and they yell words of dying, and it's freaky.
Yeah. This whole part's really dark. Also, I want to mention, since we're talking about like weird aside stuff that's not critical to the plot, I'll mention the visual thing. This whole time, it's super, super dark. Like you can't really see much at all. But there's always literally like a spotlight shining directly on your character and on any NPCs. At first I thought, you know how some games, or a lot of video games, will like secretly, like subtly, so you don't necessarily notice that the rendering engine will like put light on your main character so you can always see them no matter what, but you don't generally notice. Or like that's a common thing in a lot of games, giving them a subtle glow, something like that. I thought maybe it was just that. But no, because if you see like Noel off in the distance, he's got a spotlight on him. And it literally looks like it's like a stage, like on a stage, like it reminded me of Xenogears, for example. So yeah, not the NPCs though. So yeah, any character that appears, whether in a cutscene or in game, will have this spotlight that follows them around, that I think really makes it where you don't see anything else in the darkness except for just them. There are entire cutscenes in this section where, like, based on the camera angles, if you don't see the sky, it's like the only thing in frame is the character's face, and the rest of the screen is black. Like, it's very impressionistic, and I just really liked it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cool. So, yeah, he tells Yule that he got a big monster for her birthday dinner, and they talk a while. It's sad. She disappears. Noel voiceovers about how he couldn't accept Yule's fate or forgive Caius for leaving. But more than that, he couldn't forgive himself. Noel runs up to another Caius. Noel says that he wants to fight Caius, but not to the death. He wants to protect Yule and leave this place to find more people surviving out there. Caius is like, there's not more people out there. We're the last people. He says that in his chest beats the heart of chaos. When it stops beating, the goddess will die again, and the chaos of Valhalla will be unleashed. The chaos has the power to warp the timeline and destroy the past. Noel's like, whatever, I'm not killing you. Caius is like, then you must die instead. He attacks. Noel loses, at least for me.
Yeah, he won in my game, but it was really hard.
Noel asks Caius if he thinks destroying the past will really make Yule happy. He says he doesn't want to please her, he wants to save her. He says he's going to Valhalla to kill the goddess. He steps into a space-time distortion, leaving Noel and Yule the last few humans left in the world. Some more stuff happens. Sarah watches as Yule dies in Noel's arms. Noel voiceovers about how when a seeress sees a vision of the future, she loses a bit of her life. She dies while still young. That is the price of Etro's gift. Sarah follows Noel as he journeys to find Valhalla. Eventually he collapses and he voiceovers about the hand of death reaching out to him. Light shines down and he starts to float up into it. Sarah grabs his hand. He looks down at her and suddenly remembers who she is. She tells him he's been living in a dream. This is the part that Maddie Grace and I were talking about. She says he would be happy here forever, but she's come to take him away from it. He thanks Sarah for waking him up from his dream. So we've just seen him be miserable for a long time, and Sarah says, you're happy here. You would be happy here forever. So let's all say our interpretations of that.
My interpretation is, and I hate to have to say this because this is the most boring possible way to interpret anything, but I can't think of another explanation besides just they goofed up because making a game is hard, and they made this entire game in like 18 fucking months. And somewhere the I's and T's didn't get crossed, and maybe they couldn't just, maybe they had a different version of this dream sequence earlier in the game's plot. That I can't see it as, like, whenever I'm thinking about this game's narrative and themes, in my brain, I'm just going to pretend that line doesn't happen. However, Bernard does have an interesting interpretation that might help square the circle a little bit better. That's all I've got. The only other solution is that Sarah is extremely fucking stupid, but as we've discussed, she's actually not, even though she might seem that way sometimes.
I took it as maybe he's Groundhog Daying, and so all of the time he gets to just hang out with Yule and Caius before the shit that we watched is the part that he's like stuck in, and either we are watching his dream like from the outside and we saw the ending part of it where but he doesn't actually go into that ending, or it ends but then it starts back over at the beginning and he just gets to live a long time with sadness every now and then of the ending. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not great.
So my interpretation was, I think at this point he says something about like fading from the world or something, and I feel like maybe that's what he's wanted this whole time. Instead of going on this big journey, instead of saving Lightning, fixing the timeline, he just wanted to die. And so now here with the hand of death reaching out to him, he would get to do that. And Sarah's like, no, you can't do what you want to do because we are heroes.
I do. Oh, go on. Sorry, I thought you were done.
No, I was. I didn't really have anything to follow up.
I do have one more thought about this that I had at the time, which it's not an interpretation of that dumb line, but it's more like that line made me realize, wait a second, if I'm the villain and I want to trap the heroes in a dream world, you want them to stay in it, right? So he trapped Sarah in one where he gave her everything she wanted. Why wouldn't he just do that with Noel? He could have trapped him in a different world, maybe one that was earlier, rewind the clock a little bit, where they do go to another place and they find more people. I don't know, something, right? Or instead of this absolute pain and misery, that the part that he's having to relive, right? And my thought is this. Maybe it says something about their character. Like, you can't trap Noel in a happy, hopeful situation because he wouldn't have comprehend that. He's not like that. He doesn't have that in his heart at all. He's defined, like, he comes from a miserable world. Like, that's who he is. He's misery. So if you want to keep him down, you don't keep him down by giving him all he could ever want. You keep him down by allowing him, by giving him what he secretly does believe, which is that there is no hope. You confirm his biases. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so Caius wanted to defeat Sarah with hope, and he's defeating Null with despair. Yeah,
basically. You dang and wrong concepts here. Yeah, absolutely.
Even though if he just used a real sword and not a make-you-dream sword, he could have killed them both.
Yeah, maybe because of timey-wimey shit. I mean, she's literally, like, blessed by the goddess of Etro or whatever. Maybe he can't just literally kill her. I can just hand-wave that part.
Yeah.
So I went back to the Let's Play to look. It does seem like maybe Bernard is right, that he was giving up and was just going to fade into an eternity of nothingness, and that's why Sarah was like, hey, I know that seems like a good, happy resolution, but we're not going to do that. So I think Bernard was on top of something.
I'm always right.
Yeah, it could be that Bernard is a writer and he's really good at story type things. And I just say that I'm a writer, but I never finish anything. And that's why all of my ideas are bad.
It makes sense. Like, it honestly is cool how we have these different interpretations. Like, you know, Bernard's going to be giving it like the like literary, like, all right, what could possibly be the character's motivations? Like, if I'm a writer, what's, like, you know, writing is often just engineering and problem solving, right? What's my problem solving way of solving this problem? I'm just going to be looking at it on a purely thematic level. I was already like that before I got obsessed with politics, and I'm like that even more now, where it's like, yeah, no, I'm looking at this based on their hearts and their belief in the world and their belief in the capacity for change. Like, that's my interpretation of things. And then yours, Sam, is always going to be like, you know, the power of friendship. And they said that they were never going to use, quote, that ability ever again.
Oh, God.
But they're about to use it.
Oh, my God.
So, this scene, I also want to say, it's beautiful. They're, like, floating up in the air, hand in hand, and it's amazing. And Noel thanks Sarah for waking him from his dream. And the illusion is broken, and they start to fall. For no particular reason, Gogmagog appears under them. They both do a flip and shout in unison, "We will change the future." And then they fight Gogmagog, and it's pretty easy.
Yeah. I don't know what that's all about. The big, this is anime and therefore it's cool answer is maybe Gogmagog, because every time we fought Gogmagog, he's been a paradox. Maybe this is just where he's from. And so we're going to change the future, change the past.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, there is some deep Halo 3 terminal-ass lore with Gogmagog that I've read a little bit of. I didn't catch up on it this week because Bernard said that we had a lot this week, which we obviously do. This is a long episode, so I thought, well, if I don't have time to share it, then I'm not going to bother reading it. But maybe Gogmagog secretly is behind it all along in some weird lore way that we don't know yet.
Yeah. Anyway, after the fight, Noel says they can't change the future, even though he just yelled that he would. He says Yule died when she was only 15 because of all the visions she saw. And Sarah has that power too. If they change the future, she'll have more visions. And the more they change, the closer Sarah comes to death. Sarah states her determination to change the future regardless. Noel's like, okay. They go back to the Oracle Drive. The Oracle Drive makes Mog appear again. Okay. Mog says he was locked.
Had been, quote, gone the whole time, even though we were using Google Hunt, whatever.
They say some weird thing about how he was, like, I don't know, space-time. Mog says he was locked in the void beyond, and lightning came to save him, and that's how he got back to them. Okay. He also has a message from Lightning, quote, the truth about Caius. Mog says the Farseers, Guardians, were all Lassie, but Caius isn't a Lassie anymore. Etro freed him, but Caius became immortal too. He's protected the Seeress for centuries, He knows all the Seeress's visions throughout the timeline. And they're like, well, shit, if he's immortal and he knows all the whole fucking timeline, that means he's a pretty strong enemy. Mog says Lightning is waiting for Sarah at the end of time, Kupo. They step into a portal and pop out in a destroyed village, which Sarah recognizes as New Bodom. Noel says it looks like his era, and the UI helpfully says this is New Bodom 700 AF, so they're both right. They venture into the town and find a space-time distortion. Lightning steps out. Sarah's like, "What are you doing here?" She says this is a future she could not save. Lightning says she'll explain everything. And I'm like, if you could have just left Valhalla for a second to explain everything, why didn't you do it before?
Maybe she can only come to New Bottom 700 AF. It's like the end of the world or something.
Maybe. So, here is a lore dump. Lightning says that at the end of the last game, a gate opened into the unseen realm, and through it, the goddess gifted them her mercy. But she felt uneasy because Vanille and Fang were gone. Their fight had ended, but she couldn't relax. A new battle was about to begin. The events of that day tore open a portal to another world, and from the depths of the rift appeared a darkness that had no place in their world, an irresistible force that dragged her away to the edge of time. The screams of the dying had unlocked a gate, a door directly to the throne of the goddess. And I want to point out, this is cool because this is exactly what Bartandalus was trying to do. Kill a bunch of people so that the gate would open and Etro would come through. And I think it's cool how it's tying back into...
I forgot that. Although he never used the word Etro, right? He said, like, the maker or something?
Yeah, he called Etro the maker or something.
I definitely did not realize that this lore was the same lore. I thought it was new lore they made up. That's cool.
Yeah, it felt cool for it to be like, oh, the second game isn't all just completely new, made up stuff.
Yeah, it's
I do believe the goddess Etro is name dropped once in Final Fantasy 13-1.
Yeah.
Once or twice.
I really like how it's almost like, yeah, this whole game has all this total, like, in the previous game, the gods were fal'Cie, right? And the magic was because you were a fal'Cie and all this stuff. And it's like, but now in this game, it's because, like, no, the goddess gives you. So it's like, no, all the lore stuff in this game was already true of the world in the previous game. It just, like, it hadn't come up. Like, it wasn't, that didn't happen to be what we were dealing with, but there's this higher level of more behind the scenes lore that was there all along, and now it actually matters.
Yeah, I thought the way it all ties together here was cool. So yes, they opened a door directly to the throne of the goddess. Etro waited beyond the gate and sent her miracles to the human world, but a creeping darkness slipped through and threatened to devour our reality. Etro closed the gate and warped the timeline. Time's flow was altered, and existence itself was distorted. The darkness caught Lightning in its embrace and wrote her out of history. I also want to note, this is, like, the second time in the game we've got new FMV, and it's amazing.
They've used FMV in such an awesome way where they, and probably because they made this in 18 months and they already had half of these renders, but they did it where it's an FMV from the first game, but things go wrong. So we did it earlier to show that we're in a situation where lightning doesn't exist, and now we did it where lightning falls into the dark place.
Yeah, this is the first time we get a lot of new FMV.
Yeah.
Before it would be like, we see literally the ending of the last game, but then Sarah looks around and doesn't see lightning. But yeah, a lot of new FMV happens here, and it's really good. Lightning appeared in Valhalla. She could see the span of time. She looked on the future of mankind and sensed Etro's divine will. The goddess was fading away. If her spirit should cease to be, the world would descend into entropy. Lightning decided to fight. She says Kaya seeks to destroy all hope and bring an end to the future. Lightning says she saw an enormous power, something that shouldn't exist in this world. Only Etrog can control the power and keep it contained in Valhalla. If she were to disappear, there would be nothing to stop it. And that's what Caius wants. He wants to kill the goddess and let the chaos flow into their world through the unseen gate. Lightning says when a person dies, their soul flies to the other world and passes through the portal. If many people die at once, the gate must open wide to let them through. For example, if Cocoon should fall. The power of chaos would rush through the gate. Chaos would infect everything. It would become pure entropy without life or death or time. What exactly is entropy?
So entropy is... Boy, this is weird. But
because I off the top of my head, I can't really say what it is, but I'm pretty sure she's using it in a weird way.
What's the sentence again? Actually,
chaos would infect everything. It would become pure entropy without life or death or time.
That's valid, actually. So, entropy is going to sound weird, but there is a way to mathematically and scientifically measure chaos.
Yeah.
It might, like, what? How does that even make sense, Mary Grace? It's like, basically, so they'll always say, oh, in a closed system, entropy increases. And the metaphor that I learned when I was way back in high school, which I've learned more about this topic since then, but I have also learned that this initial metaphor was a pretty good metaphor, which is it requires effort to clean your room and to put everything where it's supposed to go. If you don't put any effort in, your room's going to get messier and messier and messier. And it's because if you have a bunch of particles, there's not quite infinite, but combinatorically, there's a blazillion different ways they can be ordered that aren't orderly. And there's only one way that is orderly, right? There's only one way to put something in their correct order. Like there's only one way to shuffle a card deck where they're in order. The 52 factorial ways from the card to the wrong order. So that's why entropy always increases. And it actually has to do with energy. Entropy. When people talk about the heat death of the universe, it's it's either maximum or minimum entropy.
Maximum.
I think it's maximum entropy, which also means minimum enthalpy, which is the real definition of it is very long and complicated and weird and abstract. But the simple definition is that enthalpy just means energy or heat. Think of it as like life energy. Like really, like it is an actual real scientific thing that you can kind of conceptualize as spiritual life energy, okay? And it's inverse.
Final Fantasy to me.
It's in inverse proportion to entropy. Always. So if enthalpy goes up, entropy goes down, etc. If I'm getting this wrong, don't at me. It could be that I misunderstand it, though it's probably more likely that I'm misexplaining it. But guess what? It's hard, okay? And I'm not this kind of scientist. I've only read a lot. I've only read books about it as a hobbyist.
Following along with the dictionary, the Oxford Dictionary definition that gets pulled up on Google when you type in entropy, you are at the very least, or you're at the very worst, explaining it poorly. Like everything you're saying matches up with a definition.
And the thing about it though is that like how can you measure something like chaos numerically? Well, here's the thing that I've learned about. I hate to bring Marx into this again, but the thing about Marx, he's like, hey, what if we looked at history from like a poetic and philosophical point of view? But he's not a philosopher. He's a scientist. Basically, it's like there's a certain kind of like very right-brained person who thinks that science is science and that like things like meaning, spirituality, philosophy, poetry, art, emotions are a different realm. But they're actually not. And sometimes if you're trying to explain how history works in a material, hard, fast, objective, scientific way, it's actually easier to explain it in terms of mythology, religion, metaphysical concepts. It's not actually, it's not like the pure material explanation is true and the metaphysical explanation is just woo-woo shit, right? And this is totally true when you start to look at like physics and like quantum mechanics and stuff, which I understand very little of. It's like the more and more you start to explain it in the most scientific way possible, the more and more it legitimately just sounds like you're talking about philosophy and religion and woo-woo shit and Final Fantasy 13-2 shit. So if you ever hear science explain something and you're like, is that a weird metaphor? It's like, no, it turns out that the foundation of the universe is weird metaphors, actually, and not material reality. So that's dialectics, baby.
My addition to this discussion is you said there's a blazillion ways for it to be disorderly, but there's one way for it to be orderly, and that reminded me of organized rice.
Excuse me?
Organized rice. I just put it in host chat.
Okay, I gotta... Is this like when you get all the...
No. I don't want...
Is this like when you get all the rice to wear a button on the same day to show that they're not going to take it anymore?
It's where all the rice. It looked like they do in the picture I just posted.
I don't like it.
I know it was loading while I was reading while I waited to load. Boy, I'm going to need some time to take this one in.
We're not talking about Final Fantasy 13-2. We got
organized to get sweaty.
Let me find where the fuck I was. Caius is trying to create a world where time does not exist. If he can erase time, Yule would be saved. Lightning has been fighting to protect Etro. Lightning says they have to face Caius on two fronts, in Valhalla and in the world of humans. Otherwise, they won't be able to change the future. That's why Lightning can't join the party. Lightning tells them that in 500 AF, the Academy tries to launch the new cocoon, but Caius would smash it into the old cocoon and bring them both to the ground. If they change this prophecy, the timeline will finally be restored. Lightning must go to Valhalla and stop Caius there. Sarah asks if they'll ever be able to be together again once this is all over. One thing at a time, Sarah. She steps into the space-time distortion and disappears. Mog makes a gate appear, and they find an artifact, and they step into the gate. The end.
Yep. All of a sudden, it's literally going to that time and doing the final boss. And I'm sure lots of weird cutscenes, but like that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Real quick, I really kind of like what I just mentioned about how the metaphysical subjective quality of existence is not a metaphor or a mask that covers reality, but is actually just also reality. They're fighting the final boss on literally both the metaphysical and material level. Like, we're gonna go fight the boss IRL. We're gonna physically stop him from doing the thing where he destroys the new cocoon. Like, he's trying to do an actual thing, blow up a thing IRL, and we're telling him stop doing that. Meanwhile, simultaneously somehow, as simultaneously as you can be in a time travel narrative, it's Homestuck shit, okay? Conceptually, metaphysically, simultaneously, Lightning is also still fighting him in a world outside of time and defeating him on a more metaphysical plane. That's cool.
Lightning is so cool, also. She's just a cool person.
Yeah, she's so cool. Her outfit, her design here is so fucking good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and her voice acting continues to be amazing.
Yeah.
When she walked
she's almost even better when she's not in the game the whole time.
Yeah, where it's a treat for Lightning to show up. It's like, oh man.
When she walked up and it started like at her knees, at first I was like, oh fuck, here's Caius, let's do some into the game shit. And then it panned up and it was Lightning. And I was like, oh, holy shit. She looks so cool. And then in the FMV, when she got to Sailor Moon and do her new Valkyrie outfit, it was so fucking cool.
She always looks so cool. She reminded me of the advertisement of the man. You know, the advertisement of the man.
We can't do this again. We can't go back to that place.
Sam, go read The Great Gatsby and then you'll understand that reference.
Okay.
Play some music.
Rest inside my mind. Since the day you came, I knew you would be with me. All the time we spent, what we shared was sure.
Memorable moments. Who's got them?
Man, I could barely memorable this enough to take my notes. Everything in this game, and it seems like every game I take notes for, is either I just say they talk for a while about nothing, or I'm having to take down everything word for word because it's all so abstract I don't know what's important and what's not.
LMAO. I only have two, really, and really my only moments are just on graphics. And then I also want to mention I actually think very important thematic insight I had last week that I forgot to bring up. So again, just the graphics are great. Okay, that's first thing. Second of all, when you finally go to New Bottom 700 AF, the thing that has always dominated the landscape, which is to say, Cocoon in the background, isn't there anymore. It's like kind of there. There's something there, but it's like, I mean, Cocoon's been destroyed, right? So it's like some sort of destroyed thing. It's very striking noticing that like the thing that you always associated with New Bottom is no longer there. You're not in its shadow anymore. It's very cool. And finally, I find it very funny that this game this is all point and a return shit, right? Although I should say after this point, not anymore. Once you click on that portal, you're back to Astoria Crux, which is great. But you're in this lengthy point and a return section, but for whatever reason, I don't know why. I guess the game just decided that this was the thing you're allowed to do now, even though they could have just locked you out of this as well. Whatever. If you were to like save and quit your game and come back during this segment and not just play it all in one sitting, you'll notice that there's actually 3 locations you can go in this weird like distorted Historia Crux. There's wherever the current plot area is, whether it's Hollow Seclusion Year Unknown, whether it's the End of Time 700 AF, whatever. And then there's also the Coliseum for some reason, which I didn't go to because I'd already done the Coliseum, so whatever. And also, the casino.
I noticed you could go to the Coliseum and Serendipity, and I was like, why would I go there?
This part of the game is so serious and dark and heavy. But then you can also at any point be like, all right, I'm going to go race some chocobos now. And you know what? I did.
I mean, that's the tradition of Final Fantasy is
I find that
meteors coming down on Earth and you're going to go race chocobos.
And the thing is, like, it's not like the game's mechanics or the system it has going wouldn't have worked if they had just not, like, no, I'm getting out of the PNR after this sequence. I can just go to the fucking casino later, dude. But no, they had to let you go to the casino. I think it's really funny. And the final thing is an insight that I had last week was, I was talking about how we were all talking about how like it's really cool how the story is so much more about like the creation of this new society than the actual story about like Caius or whatever, and how like the story of like building this new world and then trying to stop Cocoon from falling and like that, how fascinating that all is. And then I thought that, did I say my thing about how Vanille and Fong are like a big metaphorical thing?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I thought about this and I thought, why do they care so much about raising up Cocoon? And then they mentioned the reason is because then Vanille and Fong will finally be free. And I'm like, it's a little weird that these characters are like doing this whole 700-year-long project to save their 2 friends from being crystals. Like, it's good, but it's a little weird, especially given that the theme of this story is the opposite of Final Fantasy XIII. Final Fantasy XIII, I felt like at the end, okay, it's a confusing game. It's got a lot of contradictory themes, but at the end, I kind of feel like it was like, yeah, you have to save your friends no matter what, even if the world gets fucked over or whatever. It's kind of weird sometimes. This game very strongly says that's not true. That self-sacrifice is good. She's like, wow, I realized that, what did she say? She says, I realized that Snow and Hope and everyone are all fighting their battles to save the world, and I'm the only one who's not, right? So when you think about orienting the entire society just to save your two friends, it seems a little selfish, unless you view them metaphorically, in which case you realize, oh, Vanille and Fong are the people that have to suffer to hold up the rest of society.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see it that way, it's so cool. It's like making a society that is utopia in every single way isn't worth it if it's on the backs of these two people. Isn't worth it if it's due to these people having to suffer for it. That's not morally right. And those two people are a stand-in. You know, you could think of this as a Maoist third worldist sort of point of view, like and I really like that. I think that that's really cool. And I remembered I had to bring that up because, first of all, it was an important insight last week for me, and also because of the lines I just mentioned, it comes up this week. The theme reemerges as the idea that self-sacrifice is great, is to be commended, but on the other hand, building a society on two people suffering, even though that might seem like the same thing, even though the people suffering are willing to self-sacrifice themselves, that doesn't mean that we should let it happen if we can possibly help it. So we're going to go 600 years to make a society that is good for not 99.9% of people, but 100% of people. It's cool.
That's really interesting.
I really like that.
My memorable moment is just, it was cool when Vanille and Fang showed up.
Yeah.
My memorable moment was that Snow just casually cooking and doing the cliche, poking through the little window to the kitchen, being like, "Hey, what do you want for dinner?" was just cute. And I have always subtly disagreed with you two saying how hot Snow was, but him just being a housewife was pretty hot.
Yeah.
Snow was hot.
But yeah, that's all that I had.
Yeah. I like how they used the characters' old outfits to show what was going on. Although I still don't know why Sarah has magic time traveler outfit with hip windows.
At no point is it addressed, but it is still cool that, when she wakes up and all of a sudden it took me a second to get it. I didn't notice for about 30 seconds of gameplay, and then all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, she has her original character model. Fuck, that really heightened the dread of oh god, something is horribly wrong here.
You know what's fucked up? What? If you're using an alternate costume like I am, she is not in her regular outfit, so I didn't even get that.
So that aspect doesn't work. That's funny.
That's a shame.
It is a shame. Although her alternate outfit, the summoner outfit, is a fantastic outfit, and that's why I've been playing with it the whole time.
It is.
It's really good, and I highly recommend just going and looking at it because it's really nice.
Yeah, I looked at the alternate outfits, but decided to play with the canon one.
Yeah,
I did look at the alternate.
How I'm playing it.
I did look at the alternate outfits for Noel because I was like, I think we might have talked about this. His outfit is so bad, but his alternate outfits are worse.
Absolutely, 100% worse.
I've come around on Noel's design. I don't know. It is. I mean, I definitely agree that it's very goofy, but I can't explain why. I'm not a fucking artist, okay? But I like his design now.
I wish I were playing on the PS3 so that I would have the Mass Effect outfit and he could just be Commander Shepard the whole game. Because that's stupid, but it's hilarious.
I love when Square Enix does weird out-of-place crossovers with other companies.
It's stupid. But, that will do it for the week. If you liked what you heard, you can check us out on the web at www.rpgbook.club, where any and all donations go into the LongCast/Shortcast bucket. We already have paid off Lightning Return, so we'll be diving straight into that in 2-3 weeks when we're done with this game. But after that, we are trying to earn Metal Gear Solid for a shortcast. So come and give us some money and let us be super busy on the podcast front in perpetuity. Me and Bernard have a lot of cool ideas that we've been tossing around to do for the podcast, but we only can do them if we ever get caught up on LongCast. So make us never be able to do our cool ideas. That'll be fun. Yeah, for RPG Book Club Longcast, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Hauk.
And I'm Maddie Grace Webben.
Toodaloo, folks.
Bye.